to lesson 1. 2 primary personality types. Let's learn about the 2 types that make the world go round. All right, first, before we find out about these incredible eyes, let's meet Inspector I Know. And what he has, he'll be sharing great wisdom with us throughout this presentation. And what he wants us to know right now is that the eyes don't lie. Oh, I love that about this. So, without further ado, let's look at the 2 primary personality types. All right, here we have them. The thinking masculine type on the left side of your screen and the emotions type feminine. The blue eye, which can be any color, or the masculine type, which can be either brown, blue, or green. These 2 types are 2 polarities. And the ones on the right side of your screen are denoted by these arrows, and we're looking for these rounded openings, also called lacuna. On the left side of the screen, we're pointing arrows at the dotted pigmentations, or sora, as the word is in traditional iridology. And these 2 primary types, as I say, are the 2 polarities that regulate many, many forces here in 3D reality on planet Earth. Okay, lesson 2. In lesson 2, we're going to go over the 2 personality modifiers that, when combined with our 2 primary types that we learned about in lesson 1, are going to give us these 4 social types. And the 4 social types are really cool because they correspond virtually directly to the 4 types in the Myers-Briggs model. And so all personalities, so we're going to be able to take this to a whole nother level of personal detail and assessment to differentiate these 2 basic types into their subtypes. And then we're going to keep going into more modifiers and more modifiers and more modifiers, so that at the end of this series, you're going to be able to look in somebody's eyes and know some very specific things about yourself and others. All right. In this lesson, let's do the 4 social types, and we're first going to start with the 2 modifiers. Come on, Inspector, let's go. Okay. The foundation, remember, of this work is everything always evolves around. And if you ever get stuck, in fact, when I'm doing this work, the most important thing I got to get straight in my head is this some kind of a thinking type person, or is this some kind of an emotionally based person? And by the way, obviously, that thinking type can be a man or a woman. The emotion can be a man or a woman. And that, so they're going to play themselves out differently, but recognize that these 2 polarities are what make the world go round. So, if we start to look closely at these types, a little closer inspection at them is going to reveal that both of these types have something in common. And if you look at those little white fibers, they're called neurogenic fibers. They form the foundation in virtually every eye on planet Earth. So not all people have sora in their eyes. Not all people have lacuna. They're going to have one or the other. But every human being has what we call neurogenic fibers, or fibers. And they are one of the modifiers, and they look like this. So here is an eye that, once again, is primarily fibers. And once again, we're going to figure out through our analysis at some point, are they more emotional or thinking? And I'm going to show you how to do that. But for now, let's look at the quality that this modifier brings in that's so important. And I'm going to tell you that in the advanced series, we're going to go into these fibers in great detail. And I think it's because every human being has these fibers. They represent the connectiveness. They represent the unified field of consciousness. They represent unity. And it's the thing that binds all humanity together physically, as well as creation and source itself. I've heard them called Christ consciousness. They're about love. They're about empathy. They're about bringing things together. And we're going to go into them more deeply. So this is one of our modifiers. Our second modifier uses the dot and the pocket. So if you have sora and lacuna in an eye, then you have what's called a driven type, and they're driven to extremes. So here's the key with this. If you have just one sora with a whole bunch of lacuna, or one lacuna with a whole bunch of sora, it brings it over into this category of more driven. They like more extremes, and this is our other modifier. So these two modifiers are going to either, through the empathy, slow it down, or through the extremism, speed it up. Okay, lesson 3, intimate relationships. And the reason we're throwing relationships in at this stage of our presentation is because we've looked at the polarities of the thinking and the emotional type. We've looked at their 4 social types, the 2 modifiers, and how it creates these 4 personality types that basically are going to be attracted in relationship. And so now that we really understand the polarities, let's see how those polarities are going to affect relationships. And I think the big thing we're going to learn in this lesson is relationship attraction and iris structure. And I'm so happy the inspector is with us again. He just brings such wisdom at the right time. But I want to stress the fact that this lesson is about attraction. And attraction has nothing to do with sustainability in relationships. Attraction is that thing that gets your hormones moving, that Twitter-pated feeling, that kind of uncomfortable at times that draws you forward or closer to somebody that says, I gotta know more, I gotta meet you, I gotta go, whoever or whatever it is. But that kind of attraction is based in energies that are opposite, like a magnet. If the energies are the same, they repulse. But if they're opposite, then they come together. And it's the coming together that is attraction that is very predictable. And I want to say that one of the things that makes relationships and intimate relationships so challenging is that there's a second component beyond, because we need attraction to come together. But if you don't have this second component in equal volume, it's not sustainable. And that component is compatibility. Lesson 4, iris positions. One of my favorite. In this lesson, we're going to explore iris positions. The inspector will be with us again. And iris positions represent specific, predisposed gifts and lessons. And once again, we're always viewing the eyes with the eye on the right side of the screen being the female eye and the eye on the left side of the screen being the masculine eye, as if you're looking at the person. So whenever we look at pairs, that's what we're always doing. So what's very, very interesting about this is that these lessons are immutable, which means that if somebody comes in with a lesson to learn, it really doesn't matter who the parent is, what the conditions are, where they're raised, how they're raised, that it's like a itinerary that the soul comes into to learn something about this. And every one of these lessons has a gift, and every one of them has a learning. And the idea is that a lesson is for a lifetime. It's not something you just get and you're done. Finished and done. That's masculine thinking. I gotta fix it and move on to something else. Give me another project. No, a lesson is a lifetime experience that goes in layers and levels and layers and levels. All right, let's begin with lesson number 5, a continuation of iris positions. In this lesson, we'll cover the positions of self-esteem to the inner voice. And let's just review and remember that patterns in the right eye have to do with your father, men, authority, money, form, structure, police, banks, all of that stuff in the practical real world. Whereas patterns in the left eye have to do with the feminine, the mother, our creativity, abstract, conceptual thinking, that which we cannot prove, and which increases our trust and ability to commit and things like that. Okay, this position, the self-esteem, oh my goodness, this is worthy of a book in itself. The self-esteem is the foundation of our self-confidence. It has to do with our identity. You know that question, who am I? Who do I think I am? That's all a function of the mind. The area of the self-esteem has to do with the beliefs about who we think we are, our willingness to stand up for ourselves. Lesson 6, this is the third part, and we'll complete iris positions in this section. And we're going to go from counseling to rebellion. Ooh, that sounds like a nice combination. All right, as we move up the intermedial part of the eye, we're going into counseling and listening. It's a very powerful area that has exactly to do with that. Good listener, tones, counselor, sensitive hearing. So when you have patterns in this area, you're going to be very sensitive to tone and the ability to listen in between the words. And listening is a very, very, very powerful skill, because in order to be able to listen, you have to learn to forget yourself. Lesson 7, iris rings. Let's go. In this lesson, we're going to learn about the iris rings. And the inspector's here to help. All right, there's 5 rings we're going to look at. Nerve ring, sodium ring, ring of pearls, the wall, and the purpose ring. Rings are kind of similar to iris positions. They're a great way to get instant rapport with someone. So if you look in their eyes and you see one of these rings or you see an iris position, you can go in and talk about those very specifically, even before you've identified thinking or emotional or their social type or any of the work that we've gone through up to this point. Then what you can begin to do is look at a ring and just gain rapport. It's amazing, because when you look up in somebody's eye real closely and you say the first thing that comes out of your mouth, they go, oh my gosh, how did you know? You instantly have rapport. Iris rings are one of those aspects of this work that are really clear, concise, unique, and they're very easy to see and spot. Lesson 8, introversion and extroversion. Okay, we're going to learn about the expression ring in this lesson. And the expression ring is what creates a processing style in all human beings. And we're kind of open your minds to new realms of what introversion and extroversion means. So let's take a look. So introversion and extroversion are determined by this ring that is just outside the pupil. We've got it outlined in white on both. Okay, lesson 9, brain dominance. I want to give my disclaimer here for everybody that deals with any kind of ADD, ADHD, any kind of dyslexia, anything. If you're a highly creative person and you don't fit in the box, they usually put a label on you because you don't match up with the rest of everybody. Well, today we're going to learn about the effects of brain dominance on personality. And I would say of all of the patterns in the eyes and all the things we look at, one of the greatest influences of personality is right brain and left brain dominance. So let's explore what that looks like. Okay, lesson 10, putting it all together. So this is how we're going to take all this information. We're going to go over about 6 pairs of eyes here, and we're going to look at the different patterns, and let's do some of the practical work. And as I shared even after the first lesson, it's going to be really, really important to get a lighted magnifier and to start looking in people's eyes, because it's the way you're going to use it. You can go to the website and download the free iris positions chart. You can literally sit there and hold that chart, look in the eyes, and then compare it, turn the back over, read the information. But as you start to use this stuff, it's going to blow you away, because people are going to want more. And it's like, oh, there's a whole story behind that. Anyway, let's just get on.